Tomoya Aki, Megumi Katou, Eriri Spencer Sawamura, Utaha Kasumigaoka, and Tomoya Michiru Hayada, all members of a doujin circle called Blessing Software, go out location scouting from the project, a video game, as Eriri attempts to get Megumi to act out a scenario from the main hero. Utaha lures Tomoya away and forces him to act out a romantic scenario with her. However, his efforts are interrupted by a jealous Eriri, and the two girls argue. Michiru takes Tomoya to a lake and they play in the water, by one up in an awkward position, before they are interrupted by Megumi. Later on, the group plays ping pong at the ring. The following night, Eriri, Utaha and Michiru confront Tomoya and demand to know why he forces them to join the club and makes them do unreasonable tasks without repaying them. After being rescued by Megumi, he talks with her about her tendency to not stand out in the group. The two then express their hopes that their game will be enjoyed by the Otaku community. 6 months prior to the location scouting trip, Tomoya meets Megumi after he retrieves her lost beret, which inspires him to begin development on a video game with her as a main heroine. A week later, at school, he meets up with her friends Yoshiko Kamiko, who tells him about Eriri, a well-known member of the school's art club, who Yoshihiko has a crush on. Unable to recreate Megumi's exact image, Tomoya approaches Eriri and asks for her help in creating the art for the dating sim, since she is also a popular doujin writer and illustrator. Believing Tomoya isn't taking the subject too seriously because he is unable to even remember Megumi, Eriri turns down the offer. During lunch, Tomoya approaches Utaha and asks for her assistance, as she is an increasingly popular novelist, but she also turns him down after noticing an absence of originality in his proposal. After school, Tomoya expands his proposal and goes to the AV room, where he promised a meeting between him, Eriri, and Utaha. Once away there, he encounters Megumi, but she doesn't recognize her until she reminds him about how he returned her beret. Eriri and Utaha meet up at the AV room, where they both engage in a better rivalry before realizing Tomoya isn't going to show up. Eventually, Eri and Utaha decides to accept Tomoya's proposal to create the video game. Tomoya then has dinner with Megumi at a coffee shop, where he notices that despite her cuteness, she has a lack of presence. When they talk about how coincidental their first meeting was, Megumi refers to herself as boring. At first, Tomoya is enraged at her statement, but realizes that she is right since she has no traits that will make her stick out of a crowd. The two are then joined by Eriri and Utaha, both of whom take a look at Tomoya's expanded proposal and continue to express their disapproval of it. They encourage him to give up on the project, but he refuses. The next day, he invites Megumi over to his house, where he has her play a dating sim game, in the hopes that she will understand the subject material. When she finishes the game, Megumi is pleased by the experience, but is still unable to understand the actual appeal of it. Tomoya is then forced to have her stay the night and play the game sequel, which she agrees to do, much to his shock. By the time she finishes playing, Maureen has arrived, and in her drowsiness, she agrees to join Tomoya's circle. With Eriri and Utaha continue to turn down his revised draft for the project, Tomoya is faced with a final deadline at the end of Golden Week. He tries inviting Megumi over to his house again, but finds that she is out of town on a family vacation that will last until the end of Golden Week. Eriri and Utaha arrive separately at his house, with Eriri subtly motivating Tomoya and Utaha, encouraging him to give up and that being a creator had its cons. Later on, he calls Megumi again and allows her to have fun of her vacation. She then asks him about how she was appealing to him, and he responds there is no room for improvement for her. He then tries continuing with his project, but is unable to make any progress, and he contemplates giving up. Suddenly, Megumi arrives, dressed in the same attire she wore when they first met, and exhibiting a new personality, and asks if this was what he envisioned of his heroine. When Tomoya is puzzled by her change in personality, she tells him that Eriri and Utaha helped her before encouraging him to continue on with the project. Eriri and Utaha watch the scenario unfold and admit that they will be involved in the project, even if Tomoya is unable to finish by the deadline. Megumi is impressed after she finishes reading a light novel series written by Utaha. Meanwhile, hoping to learn more about Utaha's new book ahead of the rest of the public, Tomoya has a job interview with her and gets a job as a part-time editor, much to her displeasure. It is then revealed that Utaha's series gained its popularity due to Tomoya featuring it on his well-known blog site. He spends much of the day writing an interview article, after which Utaha offers her assistance on his project proposal, surprising him. Later on, Eriri decides to join in on the project as well. During a meeting between Tomoya, Eriri, and Utaha in the AV room, Tomoya announces the production schedule and declares the release date to be during the Winter Comic Con. However, because of the funding necessitated. To further the project, Tomoya is forced to work a number of odd jobs. While working one of these jobs, she is shocked to see Megumi with another boy. Though it turns out the boy is just her visiting cousin. Keiichi he chastises her for straying from the heroin formula and tells her not to see Keiichi for the time being. When Megumi tells him that she plans to go shopping with Keiichi, Tomoya asks her out and she accepts. The circle activities begin, and Eriri experience and difficulty in getting Megumi to display exaggerated emotions for inspiration for her sketches. When Megumi leaves to practice her expressions, Tomoya and Eriri talk about how emotionless she is and the challenge it presents for the game. Tomoya then asks Eriri on dating advice, as he and Megumi plan to go shopping the following weekend. At first she gives it to him, but realizes his intentions and becomes enraged. Utaha overhears the conversation and is further inspired to write the game's plot. The next day she finishes, and while Tomoya is impressed by the final result, he asks for a better conclusion, which upsets Eriri, and she wants to finish development as soon as possible. Tomoya and Megumi then go shopping at the mall, with Tomoya becoming increasingly uncomfortable about interacting with what he views as regular people. Upon reaching the last store, Tomoya realizes Megumi is buying glasses for him as thanks for accompanying her. In a flashback, Utaha meets Tomoya personally for the first time during a book signing. She becomes impressed with his knowledge of her books and eventually is enamored with him. In the present day, Tomoya misses their scheduled meeting, which upsets Utaha. She then recalls an incident 6 months ago, during which she gave Tomoya an advance copy of her final manuscript before its release, only for him to turn the responsibility down because she was only doing it to hear his feedback and not those of other fans. Later on, as a rainstorm approaches, she is surprised to see Tomoya running up to her in the rain, while allowing Tomoya to take a hot bath in a hotel room. Utaha is shocked after realizing her manager ordered the room for the both of them for the night. After taking a shower herself, Utaha has a conversation with Tomoya, who asks her for help in improving the game's plot. At first, she is upset by this, but changes her mind after he suggests keeping both storylines as game roots. After spending the entire night working out the plot, Utaha leaves the room, but not before acknowledging Tomoya as a creator. The day before, Megumi and Eriri meet up at the mall. After Tomoya leaves so that Eriri could draw a quick sketch, Eriri is pleased with her drawing, having unexpectedly upset Megumi when she reminded her that Tomoya abruptly ended their date to chase after Utaha. With the deadline for the manuscript of their doujin circle drawing near, Eriri invites Tomoya to her house. There she comes up with an idea how to push her creativity to the limit, and the two engage in a roleplay scenario. Thanks to their efforts, Eriri works near completion. At the school gate, Tomoya realizes Megumi changed her hairstyle, and he presses her for an explanation. Meanwhile, he meets Izumi, who is a childhood friend, and Otaku, and a member of the doujin circle Fancy Wave. Tomoya reminisces with Izumi, who gives him a ticket to the Comic Kid and tells him that she wants him to come to her doujin circle. Additionally, she reveals to Tomoya that everything she has now is thanks to him. As Tomoya and Eriri walk home, they reunite with their old friend Lori, who is a representative of the doujin circle, Rouge and Rouge. Lori is looking for an illustrator, so he announces a challenge to Tomoya, in which both must prove whether they are the most qualified person to use Eriri as their group's illustrator. In Tomoya's room, while Eriri silently writes a manuscript, Tomoya and Eriri argue over some minor things regarding the deadline for submitting it. Afterwards, Megumi and Tomoya play video games, during which he praises her, saying that she has become a fine otaku. He asks whether Eriri will join Rouge and Rouge, but she tells him that she has decided to become his illustrator. Once the day of the summer Comic Con, Megumi is bewildered by the large crowd, but by following Tomoya, she manages to arrive at the doujin circle where Izumi is, and the two help with Izumi's circle activity. When Izumi talks about the Comic Con, Tomoya is impressed with the quality of her work, since it has only been a year since she started. Tomoya concocts a plan, and when Izumi talks with Megumi, he starts carrying it out. Thanks to Tomoya's cooperation, Izumi Doujin Circle has an increase in its sales and is extremely well received, which makes a positive impression on Izumi. When the Comic Con is over and Tomoya leaves, he meets Eriri, who has Izumi's circle book. She tells Tomoya with tear eyes that she is no longer loved by him, and then runs away. Tomoya abruptly wakes in his bed and notices that there is a woman sleeping alongside him. He realizes that it is Utaha, who was invited to his house by Megumi. When then there of them discuss why Eriri got angry, Utaha tells Tomoya that Eriri has lost her pride as a creator, and that she subsequently lost her footing as Tomoya's childhood friend. She provides him with advice how to reconcile with Eriri. Afterwards, Tomoya goes to the Comic Kid, where he meets Lori and asks him to help him get Eriri back to his circle. At night, against the dark sky lit with fireworks that erupt over Eriri's house, Tomoya appears in her garden and cries out to her in accordance with Utaha's plan, and then takes her to the elementary school they used to attend. Eriri begins to cry and tells Tomoya that she is not as important to him as Izumi, who got to know him recently. He reveals to Eriri that he had blamed her for breaking off contact with him and making new friends. Afterwards, she pledges to become Tomoya's number one, and then Tomoya carries her home on his back. In Tomoya's room, Eriri makes a new circle cup and delivers it to the circle's members. Tomoya, Eriri, Utaha, and Megumi hold a video conference in regards to producing a game, and afterwards, Tomoya heads out to take a bath. On his way there, he bumps into a girl and realizes she is his cousin, Michiru. Michiru tells Tomoya that she ran away from home after a fight with her father over her membership in a band. After school in the club room, Tomoya is contacted by Michiru, after which Utaha tasks him with questions about his relationship with Michiru. Tomoya goes home and is shocked to discover his otaku goods dumped in the garden by Michiru. He confronts her about it, but she orders him to cease acting like an otaku and to think about his future. After the two talk about her band activity and his otaku activities, Tomoya gets in the bath, and while he is bathing, he hears Michiru playing music. Her music touches Tomoya's heart, invoking metal imagery of a cutscene from a game. Afterwards, he decides to introduce Michiru to his game circle. Tomoya introduces Michiru to the girls, stating that he wants Michiru to do the background music for the game. Michiru, however, voices her dislike of anything otaku related. Utaha and Michiru argue over the difference in their views, while Eriri is traumatized because her childhood friend's status has been overshadowed by Michiru, who has known Tomoya her whole life. Tomoya continues to persuade Michiru, but Michiru instead wants to focus on her band and find a manager for her band in order to win her father's approval. Michiru wants Tomoya to be her band manager, using it as an excuse to make him quit his otaku lifestyle, as well as stating that the other girls are not as passionate in game making as he is. Meanwhile, Megumi helps Eriri and Utaha to work on the game because they are 1 week behind schedule. Megumi later shows Tomoya the changes she made, and also in revenge for his overreaction to her relationship with her cousin Keiichi. This is Tomoya's closer relationship with Michiru. They both agree on the effect Michiru's music brings to the game. Tomoya agrees to be Michiru's band manager, setting up a first live show for the band in the process. Tomoya briefs Michiru's band, ICTL, on their first gig, stating that they are warming up for other bands, since they don't have a fan base yet. Meanwhile, Utaha and Eriri accompany Megumi to offer support for Michiru's band. Despite being upset that Tomoya becomes a band manager without consulting them first, they arrive seeing Michiru and Tomoya in a provocative position. While she questions him over the band's outfit, Tomoya explains that Asi Tales has always been playing covers of anime songs, revealing the fact that the other members of the band are actually otakus. He convinces Michiru to join his circle with the approval of her bandmates. Asi Tales' debut is well received, with Michiru performing her own original song at the end. Meanwhile, Eriri and Megumi become close friends, and Utaha finishes writing the first route of the game scenario. Tomoya and the girls take a look at the completed first route in his room and continue to work on other routes, with 2 months left until the winter Comic Kid.